Hello, my fellow gaming tankers! And now that things are, well, dust has settled, chaos has subsided, I can now get back to being behind. As you can see here, I'm finally talking about the Object 187 version 5. Yes, finally a T-72 for Era 3. T-72 Premium. I know what you're thinking, but is it a T-72 or is it a T-90 variant? But first, bringing that, my overall impressions, because the main reviewers have reviewed this tank. It's in the 6,000 gold season pass, and you're probably wondering, well, obviously I got it, but are you still on the fence about getting the ultimate season pass at this point? We're like 3 weeks in. Now, this is a great crew commander compared to the T-72 Euro in Era 2, which is the other T-72 or esque crew commander. Just commander trainer. Trainer is the word I'm trying to say here. And yeah, that thing sucks. And this doesn't, because the experimental boom snout on it, the 2A66 with 640 millimeters of penetration standards and over 700 millimeters on a premium round. Yes, certainly is not the standard 2A46 or whatever comes on the other T-72s in the tech tree lines with the 606 millimeters of penetration. Hell, there are actually some 105 millimeter Eastern Alliance tanks that have 606 millimeters of penetration. Lower alpha though, but yeah, 606 is not the standard here. So I guess you could kind of say there is a premium tank bias with penetration, and also the argument to make, like, you don't. 606 millimeters penetration is pretty good. You start going above that on a premium tank, it's like, now you can also make even better silver, because this only has a 55% silver booster, 25% for your commander trainer you gain, and that's all around nice. And if you want to load up the premium, whoo doggy, anything over 700 is nice, so kind of worth it in my opinion, especially at 6,000. You get an all new 3D commander, although even the developers joked when they announced, like, yes, the commander is so huge that it could not in the real world fit inside the tank, because as we know, the Soviets really liked having small interiors for the tank. They liked the low silhouette, small tanks, and it's the joke, okay? The commander's too big to fit in the tank. And so, all in all, that regards, I found the boom snout to be accurate, much more accurate than the other premium thing that I compared to the Topol. It has, although the Topol had the better frontal arm, but compared to the T-72 BU, which I think is the best comparison, because the T-72 BU was, alright, the Soviets had put everything they could put on a T-72 to make it equivalent to what they wanted from a modern tank before it was like, listen, we can't add any more. It's just going to get too heavy, too cumbersome, too awkward. It's time to start talking about a new tank. This has the features of what we want for the basic package of our new MBT, but we really do. The T-72 is just old, despite the fact that we're in 2026, and it's the T-72s are still like the backbone of so many countries, including the Russian military forces, as we know from Ukraine. But anyway, let's try not to get too political here. Let's talk about past equipments that were used by failing politics. Anyway, or failed, whatever you want. So, I found that the armor was something noteworthy, because I definitely noticed that while it didn't block all the shots, it certainly felt like it was negating a lot of the penetrating shots alpha damage. I was watching there were several occasions I'm like, geez, I just got a lot of, they hit me a lot of times, but the damage, my health bar didn't go down. And that didn't really go down. It went down, but not a lot. So I was like, huh, yeah, I can take a punch. I can't block it, but I can take it. And then there were times where it was blocking for the hull. And T-72s in their hulls can be a bit from the side. Didn't get set on fire a lot, is basically what I'm saying. T-72s, God, especially like the Polish, Romanian, and Slovenian ones, yes. The Warsaw Pact ones that came out. That is important to discuss. Definitely made you wish you had more armor. The Object 27 definitely has frontal armor, except for the gun mantlet. Yep, that's like, again with like the Assault, that's where you want to shoot around the gun, down the gun barrel, whatever. That's your sweet spot. So this is one of those things like, yeah, you fire your shot and then you kind of turn your turret so those fat, chubby, Dolly Parton-esque cheeks, although it's not our cheeks we're talking about, would take the hit and bounce the shots. And that's how you want to play it. Kind of like how you play the other T-70s. And at 6,000 gold, you get this, the Ultimate Season Pass, and all that's included in that. And yeah, not a bad tank. Although later on, down the line, when they start asking 12 at discount for 12,000, 14,000 gold for it, well, okay, you might have a more low-key negative discussion. I don't know. But this begs the question. Is this a T-72? Certainly a tease for the T-90 because the Object 27 was like, okay, T-70 is old. We know what we kind of want. Because like the T-72BU has a lot of the equipment we want it to have. But is there any other experimental stuff we got our mad scientists are cooking up to work with that? So where the 2A66 cannon, booms out, sorry, tell you to, works, is sort of being played with. And maybe some experimental ATGMs, which, yeah, the ATGMs can be fine once they finally load. And that's, yeah, you'd really do just like with anything Russian. It's like, yeah, you can work on gun accuracy or reload of the cannon. Booms out is the main focus here. Hull armor, thankfully, doesn't mean you have to worry too much about it. Weirdly enough, before I get too into the debate, 60 kilometers per hour is the top speed. So you may also be considering boosting the speed because, weirdly enough, despite the fact that this tank came around the time of the T-72, unlike the Soviet tank line, the T-72 line, this tank does not have the capability of doing the 70 kilometers per hour, which technically the Soviet T-72 should not be able to, but they have been buffed because of the T-80 line, which I think when that first came in, Wargaming decided to increase the speed of the T-72s to 65 kilometers, so they didn't get too outclassed. Then the Warsaw Pact branch came in, which saw 70 kilometers per hour being a base speed for T-72s, and they were like, well, we better keep the Soviet tank line. We'll buff them again to 70 kilometers per hour, so you can do that without any sort of speed boost equipment or anything on. That's what my T-72's BU sits at, 70 kilometers per hour. Here we have the Object 187 version 5, which came out about the same time with a higher horsepower engine, same power to weight ratio as the T-72BU. It does 60 kilometers per hour. It has the original speed of T-72s when the Cold War mode was brought in. And that's definitely a balancing. It annoys me to say, but Wargame was smart not to buff up the speed to keep it at a slower speed, because if not, with that high penetration boom snout, with the decent hull front and side armor, you could start arguing that this is OP. So in some way, shape, or form, they had to limit it, and limiting the speed made sense because 60 kilometers per hour in Air 3 is the base, is the slowest you want for a tank to go. Any slower, it's not going to work. Because again, we're talking about MBTs and medium tanks doing 70 kilometers per hour standard, almost standard. You can get them up to. And then you have the light tanks, your well, not your Bradleys, but your BMPs and your Martyr being able to do 80 kilometers. Of course, the Stormer getting those closer to 80. So the light tanks can definitely move, although they have the armor and the lack of penetration for their main cannons. I'm referring, of course, to the Stingray. They made AGS, the VFM. They lack the penetration because they only have 100. But speed is what I'm talking about, and 60 kilometer hours is like, yeah, you don't want to go slower. If a tank is introduced to Air 3 that does 55 kilometers per hour, it's like, dude, you ain't moving fast. Which is, this is going to come out after my World of Tanks Heat video, and it's like, yeah, it's funny. The hero shooter arcade tank game has slow MBTs. Huh. Very, very true to reality in a game that is supposed to defy reality. Yeah, here we have Abrams and T-80s and Leclerc T4s that came out in 2014 and clearly denote another tease of Era 4 doing 68, 70 kilometers or above. Possibly. Definitely if you're going downhill. So I low-key think, once again, not only are we teasing T-90s, but also teasing, listen, it's called Modern Warfare. It's not Cold War. This is Cold War mode, yes, but you're teasing the 90s tanks and the 2000s. M1A2 SEP V3, anyone? Anyone want that? Anyway, calm down. Back to the question at hand. So the real question, and I'm not sure, I do lean that is the Object 187 a T-90, a variant of the T-90, an early version of the T-90, or another, or kind of like a Frankenstein T-72. I look at it and what its strengths and weaknesses, all the weaknesses kind of reflect more of a T-72, so I still feel like it's a T-72. Obviously, the Object 188, the competitor to the 187, that's what was officially designated or selected to become the base model for, or the basis for the T-90. So the Object 187 I still feel is a T-72, so that's why I'm like, hey, great, we finally have a T-72 variant premium in Era 3. So many in Era 2. But it's another little, like the T-72 BU, like the Topol. It's kind of like another wink and a nudge about the T-90, which for the 90s and most of the 2000s was Russia's main MBT up until we got to the T-14. But again, and it's also like another low key, a little tendril of like, yeah, could we have truly modern MBT? Well, not truly. Okay, we're not. Because then we start talking about modern things. It's like, oh, we got the drones to talk about. We're not. That's not going to happen. But again, another little like starting to stretch the the amount of 80s MBTs here. Again, just are we going to get an Air 4? I mean, I don't know, but yeah, and that's the question. Do you consider this to be a T-72 variant or a T-90? I know I've kind of put my thumb on the scale here, but another tank that is good, but also kind of alludes to future potential. Yay! I got my ATGM because, good lord, that was the one. I wanted to use ATGM so badly, but like all the Soviets, I was like, you know. If you have played any of the Israeli Merkavas, or even their Magach versions, or their ATGMs, and you get a good chunk, a good amount of them, they load in about 10 seconds. It's so funny. You play any of the MBTs from the Soviet line and the Russian line that have ATGMs, and you load those in, taking 24 to 26, almost 30 seconds if you have nothing to reduce your reload time. And then you play any of those reload things, like you feel like you're machine gunning ATGMs with a 10-second or 12-second reload. And in matches that take 5 minutes, or they can be 4 minutes. Like, good lord, I spent a third of the time loading in ATGMs, or ATGMs if you want to fire more than 2. No, but yeah. All in all, Object 187 version 5 fits nicely into Era 3. It's if you can get past lack of gun depression, it definitely is a wonderful MBT. It has, I think, better armor than the previous Era 3 that came out, the Ariete. Although that Italian tank is a surprise hit. I'm still seeing it played. Fits wonderfully nice. Object 187. I think you can get by with not boosting up its speed, but if you wanted to boost up its speed, you wouldn't have to worry too much about the accuracy of the 187. But then again, Cold War accuracy does not fit what it says these tanks say on paper. So, all in all, what do you think? Is this a T-72 variant? Is this just a low-performing T-90? Because it's definitely a tease. And are we ever going to get the T-90 as a premium or the beginning part of a possible Era 4? There's no talk of Era 4. Okay? I think that is not a win. I still think there's no win. It's still an if. But I mean, we have the Leclerc T4, which is an experimental French tank that came out in 2014. So we have much more modern tanks than that. And, I don't know. I'm just rambling, but what do you think? Will Wargaming ever deliver the T-90? Are you pleased with this T-90 tease? Comment down below, like and subscribe if you are appreciative of the Eastern Alliance tanks in World of Tanks Modern Armor in the Cold War mode. I don't know, man. Anyway, keep your tracking down, RNGs in favor, and if you're still here, thank you for listening to my ramblings. I'm tired. It's been some interesting times for me. Thank you all for following, for subscribing, and commenting. Maybe the next video will be a little more better put together. I don't know. It may involve the British things. Like I said, I'm behind, and I will catch up. And thank you for sticking with me. Alright. Signing off. Goodbye. Enjoy the rest of this clip because it's almost over. Let me know. Do you want the T-90 at all? Goodbye.